So I'm here with Graham Fink, a London advertising legend whose advertising career started in CDP, WCRS, and he worked in Dave Trott's ad agency, Saatchi & Saatchi London. Then he went to direct films, right, in Paul Weiland's production company. Back to agency life in M&C Saatchi. He has a career loads of pencils, lions, but guess what? He packed up his bags to go to China, and now he's Chief Creative Officer of Ogilvy in China. And you have growing acclaim as a multimedia artist. So, Graham, welcome to Adobo Talks.
Thank you.
Now, you've been underestimated for being so young when you applied at CDP that you had to disguise yourself as an old man. You are the youngest ever D&AD president. Now, creativity is often associated with youth, yet many people hone themselves even more as they age. How have your years made you more creative?
Very interesting question. I wonder if it's made me more creative. I think it's more about being able to do the process a bit faster, because I kind of understand now what's needed and I can get there much quicker. I think creativity can be nurtured. I think everyone is creative. It's just that some people do it more than others. It's, you know, it's the 10,000 hour rule. You know, that's why the creative department tend to be the best at coming up with ideas, because that's what they do day in, day out. But it's not to say that you know, anyone else can't have an idea.
So it doesn't matter the age?
Absolutely not. But I think that I've just got better at it, and I've seen a lot more things. And, you know, especially by coming to Asia, I've seen a lot more stuff that's kind of gone into the reservoir, if you like, and I've got more stuff to draw on.
So how do you leverage experience and maturity to become even more creative?
I think it's about all those experiences that have gone in, and you just get yourself into a position, get your mind into a position where you can, you know, drill into those areas and let them come out. I'm a very big fan of David Lynch, the film director.
Yes.
And one thing that he did, he's actually been doing it for about 30, 40 years, is meditation. And it's something that I studied a little bit too. And actually, David Lynch encouraged me to do it more. Not that I met him, but on YouTube, you can look it up. There's a thing called Catching the Big Fish.
Okay.
And David Lynch talks about, on the surface, there's lots of kind of little fish, and the surface of the sea or the lake or the water is moving very fast, right? And that's kind of our day-to-day thoughts that we have. It's kind of the stuff that's going on in our head all the time. And through meditation, or just kind of getting yourself into a position where you can sort of relax a bit more and have fun, you can sort of go deeper, and you go through all the little fish, and you start getting slightly bigger fish, and then you go right down to the bottom of the ocean, which is actually very, very still. And there are the really, really big fish. And of course, to me, those are the really, really big ideas. But you've got to allow yourself the time to do that. And you have to, I believe, trust your gut and your subconscious that you will get there. Because if you panic, you're never ever going to get past a little fish.
Does your reputation and success pressure you to maintain it? And what is your measurement for success in your career? You know, you're at the stage where you've done a lot already. How do you measure yourself now?
Yeah. Well, again, a very interesting question. You know, the first bit was quite interesting. You know, yeah, I've been lucky, and I've worked in some great places and been taught by many fantastic people, and managed to do a couple of nice things. And then what happens is that there's more kind of expectation on me, I guess, in an agency to be able to solve the big problems or crack something. And that's where a little bit of panic sets in, because, and I think actually there's a lot of people like me out there, that there's this sort of inner fear. You're thinking, oh fuck, you know, I'm not really that good. I've just managed to sort of get away with it. I think it's about, as I said, it's about trusting yourself, and that's where it comes out. The measure of success is interesting because everyone talks about awards all the time, and I don't think it is about awards. I mean, obviously, you know, Cannes is very meaningful, Spikes is very meaningful, D&AD is very meaningful, and there's so many award schemes now. And obviously that's great because if it's a really great jury and people that you really respect on that jury and they hand you a lion or a pencil or a Spikes, you feel very honoured and flattered. But that's really kind of the icing on the cake. To me, I think that it's, if you look at what we're trying to do is influence people in certain ways to engage with brands. And unless we do that, it doesn't matter if you win 10 awards. If it's like, if the work's not a real piece of work, you know what I mean? It's not really going to affect anything. You know, for years and years, people have been doing charity ads for certain things to, there's a lot of stuff out there, and we've been doing those kind of things, and then you look around at the reality, and has it really changed anything? Well, some things have, and most things haven't. It's about really affecting the world, affecting people. And you know, Dave Trott always talks about that actually what it's about is you going into a restaurant or a bar and you hear someone whistling the song that was on your ad, or you use a quote, or there's an end line, or there's a funny scene, and you hear people talking about it. And I think that's true. Dave trained me a little bit.
You're very lucky.
Very, very lucky, and I believe that's true because you know it doesn't matter about all these awards behind you on the shelf. It's, you know, are you really affecting people's lives?
Is it becoming harder now to do that?
I think it's much more harder because you know you're reading off your phone. Everybody's got phones. Everyone's got all these distractions. There's so much social media. There are so many things in our daily lives that are distractions, right? And I can look at so much. And I think to be really successful, you've got to be a great editor. You've got to know which bits to cut out, which bits to leave. I'm not going to look at, I don't have time for that. I've only got a finite amount of time to sort of get in, you know.
Now, you're an artist too, and you've drawn faces with people in aerial shots for the British Airways spots you did ages ago. You've drawn faces with your mind using infrared sensors, tracking your eye movements. These unique ideas needed much forethought, and yet your talk contends that thinking is of little use to you when you need original ideas. Please reveal the method to your madness.
Well, it's quite interesting. I'm doing a talk here tomorrow. Actually, this is the title of my talk. It's called "Eat Your Head," right? And what I mean by that is since the beginning of, since the dawn of creation, mankind is always creative, right? That's what I mean. Everyone is a creator. You know, we build communities, we're building houses, we're building bridges, we're building relationships, we're building so many things, but we're always creative. And we're very, very inquisitive, and we experiment and we play, and we're not afraid to fail when we're this high. And what happens as we grow up is there's little voices start appearing in our heads, right? It says, oh, maybe you shouldn't do that, or hang on, if you talk about that, maybe you should mention that. And especially in this world now that's so politically correct, we have to be very, very careful when things like this are going out. If you've only got to say the wrong thing, and you know, it can be highlighted. So in a way, I kind of feel that all this social media is actually kind of stopped us from saying really a lot of the stuff that we really think. But anyway, the self-doubt goes on, and then we in the agency, you know, we have briefs and we have meetings and we have tortuous meetings, and then we have presentations, and then maybe this isn't right, and maybe the client's not going to buy that, and can we have a route that does this, please? And And then, well, we're not sure, and then someone higher up comes in and says, well, no, they're not going to buy that, we need to cover off this, and then we do, you know, we present stuff to the clients, and they want another route, and they want to then research this, and then there's all this data now, and we've kind of, in a way, we've sort of lost this, we kind of sort of lose direction. There's all this kind of great stuff and energy at the start, and then it all kind of gets a bit sort of watered down and lost. And when you see the finished thing, so many times you look back and go, well, it's not as good as sort of what we had 4 weeks ago. And I think that we overthink everything. Thinking gets in the way. Thinking destroys great ideas, and it's because of the head. And the heart connects. The heart makes connections. The heart can tell stories and connect with people. The head is of no use to you at all. And I think we should give the heart more of a chance. We should chop off our head and we should put it on a plate
and let the heart do the talking.
And we should eat it. And it's very interesting. You know, Dave Trott said something very, I thought was great to me a while ago. He talked about the difference between art directors and copywriters. That works, that's strategically sound, it's bang on brief and normally on time, but often it's a bit dull. And an art director will give you something fantastic. It's so inspiring, it's amazing to look at, it's magical, it's very, very memorable, but it hasn't really got much to do with what you're trying to, the message you're trying to get across. So this is when you need the two together to sit and work. And I think that when the writer and the art director is working together, you hit a zone where you don't know who's saying what. You're just feeding off each other, you're putting the stuff out, and that is the moment when it happens. You're not really thinking. It's just coming out, it's coming out. It's incredible energy, and you're writing all this stuff down. And that's why you need a bit of time. You need to give it the overnight test. These days we have the over lunch test because there's not enough time. Actually, we don't even have lunch anymore. It's the over sandwich test.
It's like a moment of magic that happens.
Yeah,
right?
It's that moment of magic. And it's so exciting. And do you know what? You also know actually when you've got it.
Got it.
Yeah.
And is the process, I mean, this process, is it something that you're encouraging people to do, or is it something that's you're prevented from doing it because of all that's coming in?
I encourage people to do it. Yeah. You know, I always say to my creative department, I'd rather you come in with stuff that is wrong. It's not great, but you've tried to do something different. You've tried to do something original. Don't come in with stuff I've seen 100 times before. You know, don't. You know, I say to the department in China, you know, you're the creative department. You're not the copying department. Come in with interesting things that aren't quite right, and then we can work it out. You know.
Now, how has Asia changed you? I mean, you've spent an entire career, you think it's done in London, and then you come to Asia.
Yeah.
Now, how has Asia changed you?
I've got a few more grey hairs. It's been a very, very humbling experience. I've been here 5 years, in Shanghai. And you know, I look after, on paper, 20 offices in China, but actually it's really Shanghai and Beijing. And that's a couple of thousand people in those, you know, offices combined. And it's just very humbling to see so many different cultures, because it's not just people from mainland China. We have people from Hong Kong, we have people from Taiwan and from Singapore. We've got some Brits and Americans, and there's all these. It's kind of a mishmash of culture, and it's amazing. I mean, in Europe, you could fly to France or to Germany or to Spain or Italy, but here you know, you can be in KL or you can be in Tokyo. And Tokyo, I mean, what an incredible place that is. And yes, I mean, it really, really opened my eyes. I knew it would, and that was one of the reasons I came here, is to try to jump into the unknown and do something completely different. It was a little bit mad and risky, and lots of people said, you're crazy to go to China. I said, well, that's why I'm going, and I don't regret it at all.
Can you apply this in China? Do you think?
Well, they eat anything. They eat anything in China, right?
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And let's talk about creativity in China. You know, how hard is it to come up with good creative work? I was just talking to some of the jury members here. China's not doing really well creatively in the shows. Why do you think that's happening?
I think it's still
such a big market.
Yeah, but it's a big market, but it's a relatively young market, right? I mean, China hasn't been doing advertising as long as a lot of other countries, so it's still relatively young, even though it's catching up fast. And I think, you know, things like, because of the Cultural Revolution and the way a lot of people are taught, you know, people are kind of frightened to experiment, they're frightened to lose face, they're frightened to ask questions, and it's all about nurturing them and giving them the courage to do that. There was an interesting little analogy I have. In London, there's this restaurant in Piccadilly Circus called the Criterion, and it's been there for years and years and years, and it was eventually bought by Marco Pierre White, the famous chef, and he decided to sort of gut it all, right? And he was ripping everything down, and they were thinking about changing the lights, and which was a very high ceiling. And when they got up there to change these lights, they realized actually it was a false ceiling. And they took this down, and literally like another 10 feet above this was this golden mosaic ceiling. And it seems insane that they would cover up this beautiful gold thing. And so it came down, and now you see the original ceiling. And I think it's a little bit like China, that is there. But, you know, maybe the Cultural Revolution, maybe teaching techniques have sort of covered it over. And I think it's about poking holes in the ceiling and allow these amazing shafts of light to come through, because the creativity is there. It's just about nurturing them, helping them, giving them some confidence. I mean, we've got some amazing people in the creative. You sit down and you talk to them, and you can draw it out of them. It's some amazing stories there, and so people are very, very passionate. So
are you going to stay in Asia for much longer?
It's going well. It's frustrating sometimes, of course, but you know, I think in the 5 years of being there, we've done pretty well. We won Ogilvy Asia's first ever Grand Prix.
Yes.
You know, we've won. I think actually in China we won more spikes and other Ogilvy Asia offices, and you know, we've done some pretty nice stuff. We've just got to keep building on it.
Now, as an artist, what's next for you? You've done. You've used technology. You've drawn with your eyes. Where's your next canvas?
I've got to eat my head. I mean, the eye drawing thing is very interesting, because I didn't plan to do like some cutting-edge digital piece of technology, but I designed that piece of software that allows me to draw with my eyes.
So you actually designed the software?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I work with this coder from a company called Toby. They're the world's leading eye tracking people. And we sat together for 6 months. Obviously not continuously, but you know, like here and there we were just sort of trying things, and we worked out this thing of how to do it. And it was quite difficult to start, because your eye doesn't do what you think it does. You think you're looking there, and actually it's moving around quite a lot. So it took me about 3 months to learn how to control my eye and draw it. But I was very pleased with, you know, with the results eventually. And then I've had a couple of exhibitions in London, and one in Germany, one in China. It's kind of performance art, because I sit there and do it for 2 or 3 days. So I'm sort of developing that. I've made a bit of progression with that, which watch this space. And I've just had another exhibition recently in London of my photographs of building sites in China, because what they're doing is they're knocking down a lot of the houses to make way for the future of office blocks and towers and everything, and all this kind of modernization, which is kind of frightening in a way, but in another way it's very inspirational. But what excites me is not that, but in amongst all the rubble and the smashed up buildings, if you walk through and you really look at things properly, you see incredible beauty. And I found all sorts of things in amongst the rabble, you know, soft toys, kids' drawings, like a beautiful armchair which I photographed. I have no idea why they've left this thing. So I photographed all these objects and printed them up onto really big pieces of fine art paper, but I framed it with the wood from those particular sites.
Very nice.
So yeah, I mean, this is always an ongoing thing. I don't think I'm an artist one day and I'm a creative.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. How has your art influenced your work, and how has your work influenced?
To me, I'm just me. I get up in the morning and just do stuff, and I can't really make a distinction. I think if you're having fun, it's all creative.
All right, well, thank you so much, Brent. Thank you.